How do we distinguish fear from facts? You know, they say fear is the enemy of greatness. And because when you're afraid, you become you become crippled, right? You can't make decisions. You can't make progress if you're constantly in a state of fear. So fear versus facts. What does that mean? How do you distinguish the two? Well, if you have made a decision, if you make decisions in your life based out of fear, it's that you haven't necessarily explored the facts, or you allow your fear to sort of justify the analysis paralysis that is taking place so that you don't actually make progress. It stops you from achieving anything that you want to do because you're constantly either over analyzing a specific thing, or you are so caught up and convinced that your fears are justified, or you somehow craft a story, right, that helps you essentially validate your fears. And so if you're trying to build a legacy for yourself as a man or a woman, and you are really after building something meaningful in your life, the question is, can you build anything meaningful from a fear-based perspective? Is a fear-based approach going to allow you to make any sort of progress in anything that you do? Or can you have a facts slash data driven process that could allow you to assess a situation or assess decisions based on facts, not fear? Meaning, you're realistic, right? You say, okay, here are the pros and cons to making an investment in Bitcoin. Let's just use crypto and Bitcoin especially as a good example, because I do think there's tons and tons of misinformation, right? That is used to sort of propel and keep kicking the can down the road on making a decision as to whether or not you should make an investment in Bitcoin. It's been around what, 15, 16 years now, and some people probably, we know some very famous slash infamous people who had many opportunities to get involved early on, but I don't know, is it fear, or that's probably more ego driven, that they have refused to make an investment in Bitcoin, even though they would have been staking rich beyond imagination at this point had they done that, and they could pass that legacy down to their family, their offspring, their children, etc. But going back, it's, you probably look at it and you say, all right, first of all, I'm fearful. And then I'm going to then tell you all the reasons, all the cons, by the way. I'm not going to even point out the pros because, damn it if I do. If I call out the pros, then more than likely I might even, God forbid, I might convince myself that investment in Bitcoin is a good idea. And so you must then ask yourself, look, if you're one of these people, it's okay. There's nothing wrong. We've all used analysis paralysis and fear to drive indecisions. Let's not even call them decisions, right? Let's call them indecisions. And so, maybe now it's a good time. It's a great time for you to sit down and really think of the pros and cons of, hey, I'm going to be honest with myself. I'm no longer going to be operating from a state. It's a state of mind. It's a state of heart, of fear. And that state is driving you to, again, remain complacent in a safe environment so that you don't have to push yourself to make a difficult or brave decision. You cannot be a man of legacy if you can't make tough decisions sometimes, or at least make decisions from a very honest, clear, fair perspective. And so give yourself this opportunity. I look at it as an opportunity, whether it's Bitcoin or anything else. Take a piece of paper, write down what the subject is, write down all the pros and cons, and you have to be extremely candid, meaning you can't come and say there are no pros or there are no cons. You cannot be one way or the other, right? Some people could be overly ambitious and optimistic about certain things, and that's not healthy either, right? That's operating from a state of denial and delusion. So you don't want to be either of those two. Try to find a middle ground. Be that person from middle ground, and that's where things happen. It's not because someone is more brave than you. It's that they've taken the time to assess a situation based on facts. They've allowed data and facts to support making what many would think to be a difficult decision. And so if you did that, you would perhaps find yourself in a position where you might start to say, you know what? I wish I had made this exercise much earlier, because it would have suited me. It would have served me. It would have served my family. I kind of again go back to a lot of the you know the situation. If you look at Venezuela, you look at Beirut, Lebanon, you look at so many other countries, even Turkey, and perhaps even Europe and America at some point now, where inflation is starting to eat into people's into their bottom line, into their ability to provide. And you have to ask yourself, look, these very people, all of us have had the same opportunities. Okay. We cannot say we haven't. And I'm speaking, of course, now I'm speaking in general terms, right? We've all had exposure to information. We've all had exposure to the media. We've all seen things pop up. The question is, have we taken the time to consider it? And if you felt like you never have, or you just weren't in a position to make a decision, or you weren't paying attention, totally cool. I know that happened to me too. I remember being exposed to Bitcoin in 2010 and 11, and I didn't think anything of it. Had I been conscious about it and taken a moment to sit and study it, I would have been in a different position. And so everybody comes in whenever they come in. That's okay. They see it whenever they see it. But if you're hearing this right now, again, as an example, this is an example, but I think it's a very suitable one. You have to be able to look at the facts. You have to look at the data. You have to look at circumstances. If people had done that exercise in Venezuela or in Beirut or in parts of Africa or perhaps everywhere in the world now, their lives would look a lot different. They wouldn't have trusted the banks. They would have perhaps trusted a little bit of allocation towards Bitcoin, and maybe that would have saved them from utter destruction, financial destruction, because they had their monies with the bank, they had their money in the wrong currency, et cetera, et cetera. And so take this and apply it to anything in your life. You could apply it to business. Are you not able to invest or make a decision on starting a business because you wrote down all the fearful cons of why a business would fail, but you never considered all the possibilities of what it could do for you, both economically, financially, in terms of time freedom, in terms of family freedom, in terms of economic, in terms of just being free from the system, if you will, and having that sort of control over your own life. Did you think about that? And so all of these things are things that you need to really start to open up to and say, hey, I've been closed up too long. I can't build a legacy off that kind of thinking. This thinking is no longer serving me, and it's certainly not going to serve my family in the generations to come. What can I do that's drastic? What can I do that's impactful, that I know that, yeah, I might be taking a slight chance here. I might be getting out of my comfort zone even, but maybe it's time to get out of my comfort zone. Never financial advice. Please always talk to a financial advisor if you're not sure about your particular situation on allocation of investments or anything like that. Again, this isn't about Bitcoin per se. It's about how do you think about things, and are those things based on fear or based on opportunities? And perhaps that will be a way to serve you well in the coming years, for 2025 and beyond.